The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. But what happens when a soul forged entirely in darkness dares to reach for the light? In the shadowed ruins of Lotho Minor, where the galaxy dumps its forgotten machines and broken dreams, something impossible was about to begin. Obi-Wan Kenobi had not expected his reconnaissance mission to the Outer Rim junk world to yield anything of consequence. The Republic's intelligence suggested separatist droids were being salvaged here, rebuilt into makeshift armies for pirate groups preying on supply lines. Standard investigation. Routine work for a Jedi Master in the third year of the Clone Wars. He moved through mountains of corroded metal and shattered starship hulls, his blue lightsaber providing the only clean light in this graveyard of technology. Then he felt it. A disturbance in the Force, dark and chaotic, like a wound that had never healed. It pulsed with agony, rage, and something else, something that made Obi-Wan pause mid-step. Beneath the hatred, buried so deep he almost missed it, was a flicker of desperate yearning. Not for power, not for revenge, for release. Master Kenobi, I'm detecting movement in the lower sectors, his clone commander reported. Through the comlink. Looks like something's living down there. Big heat signature. I sense it too, Obi-Wan said quietly, already moving toward the source. The Force guided his steps through the labyrinth of refuse, past nests of hostile scavenger creatures and pools of toxic waste. The darkness grew stronger with each level he descended, until he stood before a massive chamber constructed from the carcasses of old transport ships. Inside, a figure moved in the shadows. It was spider-like, grotesque, mechanical legs fused to a torso that Obi-Wan recognized with a jolt of shock. Zobric features, black and red tattoos, horns that had once been filed to sharp points. But the eyes were yellow and broken, flickering between madness and terrible awareness. You, the creature hissed, voice like grinding metal. Kenobi, Kenobi. The name became a shriek of anguish. Obi-Wan's hand moved to his lightsaber, but he didn't ignite it. Through the Force, he reached out carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. What he touched made his breath catch. This was Darth Maul, the Sith who had murdered his master Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo 12 years ago. The enemy he had cut in half and watched fall into the abyss. But the being before him now was shattered in ways far beyond the physical. I know you, Obi-Wan said softly. I know what was done to you. Maul's spider legs skittered backward, confusion bleeding through the rage. You know nothing. He made me, perfected me, forged me in pain, and I was strong. The words dissolved into gibberish, broken fragments of Sith philosophy mixed with screams. But Obi-Wan had spent years studying the Force, learning from his losses. He had seen Anakin struggle with darkness. He had witnessed younglings corrupted by fear. And in this moment, looking at the wreckage of Darth Sidious's discarded weapon, he understood something profound. Maul had never been given a choice. You were a child once, Obi-Wan said, taking a step forward. His lightsaber remained unlit. Before the Sith found you, before you knew hatred. I can feel it in the Force, Maul. Beneath everything Sidious built, there's still someone else. Someone who never wanted this. Lies. Maul launched forward with shocking speed, mechanical legs carrying him in a frenzied attack. But Obi-Wan didn't fight. He simply dodged, his movements precise and calm, never striking back. The Jedi Master had fought Maul once before with aggression born of grief and anger. This time, he chose a different path. I'm not here to kill you, Obi-Wan said, ducking under a wild swing. I'm here because the Force brought me to you. Why do you think that is? The question penetrated Maul's fury like a blade. He stopped mid-attack, trembling, mechanical legs scraping against the metal floor. The Force abandoned me, threw me away. Like he did. Like everyone, his voice broke. I feel it. The light. It burns. It remembers what I did to Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan finished quietly. The name hung in the air between them. Yes, you killed my master. And I have carried that with me every day since. Naboo. He deactivated his lightsaber completely, clipping it to his belt. But I've also learned that the Sith are as much victims as perpetrators. You were stolen, Maul. Twisted. Made into a weapon. But weapons can be reforged. For the first time in 12 years, Maul felt something other than hatred. It was small, fragile, and terrifying. It felt like hope, and it hurt worse than any physical wound. "What are you saying?" Maul whispered. Obi-Wan extended his hand. "I'm saying that if you want to break your chains, truly break them, I will help you. The Jedi Council may not agree. Many will call it madness. But I believe the Force has given you a second chance. The question is, will you take it?" In the darkness of Lothal Minor, surrounded by broken machines and the echoes of a broken life, Darth Maul stared at the offered hand. The same hand that belonged to the Jedi who had defeated him. The same Jedi whose master he had murdered. And for the first time since he was a child stolen from Dathomir, Maul made a choice that was entirely his own. He reached out and took Obi-Wan's hand. If you want to see more transformative Star Wars stories, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character whose redemption arc you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The journey from darkness to light had begun, but the galaxy was not prepared for what Maul's redemption would cost, or what it would create. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant had seen many trials throughout its thousands of years of history. It had weathered wars, political upheavals, and the endless struggle between light and darkness. But when Obi-Wan Kenobi's shuttle landed in the temple hangar with Darth Maul and binders aboard, the very foundations of the Order trembled with controversy. Master Yoda stood at the center of the council chamber, his ancient eyes closed in meditation as he felt the disturbance approaching. Around him, the holographic projections of Jedi Masters flickered into existence. Mace Windu from the front lines of the Outer Rim, Plo Koon from a Star Destroyer above Cato Neimoidia, Ki-Adi-Mundi from the siege of Geonosis. All had been summoned urgently. All knew why. "Impossible. This should be," Yoda murmured as Obi-Wan entered, flanking a restrained Maul whose mechanical spider legs had been replaced with basic prosthetics. During the journey, the Zobrik's yellow eyes swept across the assembled Masters with a mixture of defiance and something far more unsettling, shame. Mace Windu's hologram leaned forward, his expression hard as durasteel. "Obi-Wan, explain yourself. You bring a Sith Lord, a murderer, into the heart of our order during wartime. Have you lost your mind?" "Perhaps," Obi-Wan admitted calmly, "but I have not lost my faith in the Force. Masters, I ask that you look at him. Truly look, not with your eyes, but through the Force. Tell me what you sense." Maul stood rigid, every muscle taut with anticipation of judgment. He expected execution. Part of him craved it. The other part, the part that had taken Kenobi's hand in that junk pit, whispered that death would be too easy an escape from what he had done. The council members fell silent, their awareness extending through the Force to touch the being before them. What they found made several recoil. Maul's presence was a maelstrom of dark side energy, corrupted and twisted by decades of Sith conditioning. But beneath the surface, like a buried signal, they felt the fractures, places where the darkness had cracked, revealing something raw and agonized underneath. "He's broken," Master Shak Ti said softly, her voice carrying genuine surprise. "Not just physically. His connection to the dark side is fragmenting." "A trick," Mace countered immediately. "The Sith are masters of deception, Obi-Wan. This could be exactly what Dooku or Sidious wants, to plant an assassin in our very temple." "Then let me be clear." Maul spoke for the first time, his voice rough but steady. "I am no longer useful to my former master. Darth Sidious replaced me the moment he found a more promising apprentice. I was cast aside, left to rot in madness for over a decade." His hands clenched in their binders. "I have committed atrocities in service to the dark side. I have killed Jedi, slaughtered innocents, spread suffering across systems. I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask only for the chance to undo some small fraction of the harm I have caused." "What?" The question came from Anakin Skywalker, who had just entered the chamber. The young Jedi Knight's presence blazed with barely controlled anger. "Why should we believe anything you say? You're Sith. You're evil. That's all you'll ever be." Obi-Wan noted his former Padawan's reaction with concern. Anakin's fury was understandable, but the vehemence spoke to deeper fears. The same fears about his own potential for darkness. Maul turned to face Anakin fully. "You're right to hate me, young Skywalker. I can feel your anger. It calls to the darkness I know so well." He took a slow breath. "But I am not asking you to believe in my goodness. I'm asking you to believe in the possibility of change. Your master did. Against all logic and wisdom, Kenobi offered me a choice. No one has ever done that before. Matters not what he wants, Yoda said, tapping his Jimmer stick against the floor. Decide we must what the Force wills. Dangerous, this path is. Unprecedented. But sense something. I do, a purpose, perhaps. Or a test. Plo Koon's hologram flickered as he considered. If we execute him, we become executioners. If we imprison him, we solve nothing. But redemption? Master Yoda, in all the archives, has there ever been a successful conversion of a true Sith Lord to the light? One case, there is, Yoda admitted. Ancient and incomplete the records are. But possible, the Force suggests it is. Whether possible for him, the ancient masters, gaze fixed on Maul with penetrating intensity. That remains to be seen. Mace Windu shook his head. This is folly. We're in the middle of a war. We don't have the resources or the time to rehabilitate a Sith. And what message does this send? That the Jedi welcome the enemies who murder our own? No, Obi-Wan said firmly. It sends the message that the Jedi still believe in the core principle that separates us from the Sith, that no one is beyond hope, that the light can reach anyone, if they're willing to let it in. He looked at Maul. He chose to reach back. Master Windu, in 12 years of suffering, he could have rebuilt his power, sought revenge, returned to the Sith. Instead, when offered a hand in friendship, he took it. Because he had no other options, Anakin interjected bitterly. He's playing you, Master. Maul's laugh was harsh and broken. You think this is the easier path, boy? To face the Jedi Council and beg for a chance to serve those I was trained to destroy? To feel the light side burning away at the darkness that has been my only companion? To remember every face of every person I murdered and know I can never bring them back? His voice cracked. Death would be mercy. This is penance. The chamber fell into heavy silence. Even Anakin seemed unsettled by the raw honesty in Maul's words. Finally, Yoda spoke. Vote, the council must. But propose this, I do, a trial period. Supervise constantly, Maul will be. Train with him, Obi-Wan will. If volunteer, he does. Any sign of deception, any hint of darkness, unrepentant. And ended this experiment will be. But deny a soul seeking light, the Jedi should not. Our way, that is not. I volunteer, Obi-Wan said immediately. Mace Windu closed his eyes, clearly displeased but unwilling to override Yoda's wisdom. If the council agrees, I will accept this decision. But Kenobi, understand, you are responsible for every action he takes. If Maul falls, or if this is a manipulation, the blood will be on your hands. I understand, Obi-Wan replied, and I accept that responsibility. One by one, the council members voted. The decision was far from unanimous. Several masters remained deeply opposed, but a narrow majority sided with Yoda's proposal. Maul would be given a chance. One chance. As the council dismissed, and Maul was led away to secured quarters, Anakin approached his former master. I hope you know what you're doing, Obi-Wan. Because if you're wrong about him, people will die. Obi-Wan placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder. I know, my friend. But I have to believe that the Force brought me to Lotho Minor for a reason. And perhaps, he glanced at Anakin meaningfully, perhaps this isn't just about saving Maul. Perhaps it's about proving that anyone, no matter how far they've fallen, can find their way back to the light. Anakin said nothing, but something flickered across his face, hope mixed with fear. He turned and walked away, leaving Obi-Wan alone with the weight of what he had just set in motion. In his quarters, Maul sat in meditation position for the first time in 12 years, attempting to quiet the screaming chaos in his mind. The dark side raged against his decision, demanding he strike down his captors and reclaim his power. But beneath that familiar fury, something else stirred. It felt like dawn breaking after an endless night, and it terrified him more than any enemy ever had. The meditation chamber in the temple's lower levels had been chosen, specifically for its isolation. Reinforced walls, force-dampening fields that could be activated instantly, and a direct security line to the council chambers. Obi-Wan had insisted on these precautions not because he distrusted Maul's intentions, but because he understood the brutal reality. Purging decades of dark side conditioning would be a war fought in Maul's own mind and body, and there was no guarantee which side would win. Maul knelt on the cold stone floor. His new prosthetic legs, simple, functional, nothing like the monstrous apparatus he'd cobbled together on Lotho. Minor, folded beneath him. Sweat already beaded on his tattooed skin despite having barely begun. Obi-Wan sat across from him, a careful distance away, his presence in the Force calm and steady like a lighthouse in a storm. The first step, Obi-Wan said quietly, is the hardest. You must open yourself fully to the Force, without the filter of rage or hatred. You must feel it as it truly is, not as a tool to be wielded, but as a current to flow with. I know only one way to touch the Force, Maul replied through gritted teeth. Pain, anger, the suffering of others feeding my power. Your way, I don't understand it. Then we'll start with something simpler. Breath. In the Jedi tradition, we begin with the breath because it connects us to life itself. Breathe in slowly. Feel the air entering your lungs. Hold it. Then release, and with it, release your expectations. Maul tried. He drew breath, held it, released. Nothing happened except the familiar gnawing of the dark side in his gut, demanding to be fed. He tried again, and again. Each time, the darkness surged stronger, as if sensing his betrayal and punishing him for it. It's not working, Maul snarled, his hands clenching into fists. The dark side won't let go. It's in my blood, my bones. Sidious made sure of that. Because you're still fighting, Obi-Wan observed. You're trying to force the darkness out through sheer will. That's still the Sith way, dominating through strength. The light side requires surrender, Maul. Not weakness, but acceptance. Acceptance of what? Of what you've done. Of what was done to you. Of the pain you carry. Obi-Wan's blue eyes held steady compassion. You can't simply bury your past and pretend to be someone new. You must face every moment, every choice, every victim. Only then can you begin to heal. Maul's breathing became ragged. If I do that, if I truly face what I am, it will destroy me. Perhaps, Obi-Wan admitted. Or perhaps it will free you. There's only one way to find out. For a long moment, Maul remained frozen, poised between the familiar embrace of darkness and the terrifying unknown of light. Then, slowly, he closed his eyes and stopped fighting. He let the memories come. They crashed over him like a wave of fire. He saw himself as a child on Dathomir, barely more than an infant, screaming as he was torn from his mother's arms. Talzin's face, anguished and helpless as Darth Sidious claimed her son. The memory was fragmented, more feeling than image, but the terror was absolute. He had been wanted. He had been loved. And then he had been stolen. The scene shifted. Training chambers on Mustafar. Or perhaps a ship. His early memories blurred together in a haze of pain. Sidious standing over him, lightning dancing from aged fingers, teaching him that suffering was power and mercy was weakness. Maul remembered the lessons. Pain is a gift. Master it, and you master the Force. He remembered believing it because there was nothing else to believe. No other reality offered to him. He saw faces. So many faces. The Jedi on Malachor he'd ambushed. During his trials. The politician. On Coruscant, whose assassination had been his first independent mission. Smugglers, soldiers, civilians, anyone Sidious deemed worthy of death. And finally, the face that haunted him most, Qui-Gon Jinn, eyes wide with shock as Maul's lightsaber pierced his chest. I didn't even know why. Maul whispered aloud, tears streaming down his face. Sidious told me to kill the Jedi, to break the blockade's opposition, and I obeyed. I didn't question. I didn't hesitate. I was proud of what I'd done. And now, Obi-Wan asked gently, now I would give anything, to undo it. But I can't. The dead stay dead. And I put them there. Maul's entire body trembled. How can the Force ever forgive that? How can I? The Force doesn't require perfection, Maul. It requires honesty. You've taken the first real step, acknowledging the truth of your actions without justification or excuse. Obi-Wan leaned forward slightly. Now comes the harder part. You must forgive yourself. Not for what you did, but for what you were made to be. The child stolen from Dathomir is not responsible for the monster Sidious created. But I am that monster, Maul insisted. You were, Obi-Wan corrected. Past tense. The question is, who do you choose to be now? Maul opened his eyes, meeting Obi-Wan's gaze directly. In that moment, something shifted. The dark side, sensing its hold weakening, lashed out with vicious intensity. Pain exploded through Maul's body, phantom agony from wounds long healed, echoes of Sidious's torture. The endless ache of hatred turned inward. He gasped, doubling over, claws scraping against stone. Obi-Wan moved instantly, his hand hovering over the emergency alert. Maul, stay with me. Don't let it pull you back. It hurts, Maul managed through clenched teeth. The darkness. It's burning me from inside. This is what I deserve. This is... No. Obi-Wan's voice cut through the spiral. This is the dark side's final weapon, convincing you that you deserve nothing but suffering. But that's a lie, Maul. You are more than your worst acts. The Force is showing you that now. If you'll listen. Maul tried to hear it, tried to feel anything beyond the screaming void where the dark side had lived for so long. And then, faint as a distant star, he felt it. Warmth. Not the burning hate he knew, but something gentler. The Force, flowing around him not as a weapon, to be seized, but as a presence simply there, waiting, patient. He latched onto that feeling like a drowning man clutching driftwood. The pain didn't vanish, but it became bearable. The darkness didn't disappear, but it retreated, snarling, to the edges of his consciousness. I felt it. Maul breathed, wonder mixing with exhaustion. Just for a moment. The light. It's real. It's always been real, Obi-Wan said with a slight smile. You were just looking in the wrong direction. This is progress, Maul. Significant progress. But I won't lie to you. It gets harder before it gets easier. The dark side doesn't surrender its hold willingly. Maul nodded slowly, his entire body aching as if he'd fought a physical battle. In a way, he had. How long will this take? I don't know. Every being's journey is different. For you, Obi-Wan considered carefully. You weren't just trained in the dark side, Maul. You were forged in it from childhood. Unlearning that won't happen in days or even months. It may take years. I have time, Maul said quietly. For the first time in my life, I have time for something other than revenge or service to a master. If this is how I spend it, in pain, in struggle, trying to become something other than a weapon, then so be it. Obi-Wan stood, offering his hand to help Maul up. We'll continue tomorrow. For now, rest. Your body and mind need recovery. As Maul rose on unsteady legs, he paused. Kenobi, why are you doing this? I killed your master. By all rights, you should want me dead. Obi-Wan was quiet for a moment, his expression distant. When Kagan died, I was consumed by anger and grief. I wanted nothing more than to make you suffer as he had suffered. And I got my wish. I cut you in half and watched you fall. But that victory brought me no peace. It took me years to understand why. He met Maul's eyes. Kagan believed in looking for the good in all beings, even when it seemed impossible. He would have wanted me to do this. To see the person you might become, not just the Sith you were. So I do this for him. And perhaps, in some small way, for both of us. Maul had no response to that. He simply nodded and allowed himself to be escorted back to his quarters by the ever-present temple guards. As he lay on the simple bed, staring at the ceiling, he felt the dark side prowling at the edges of his consciousness like a predator, waiting for weakness. But he also felt something new, the faintest glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, the predator could be tamed. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Count Dooku stood on the bridge of his Providence-class dreadnought, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the stars. The holographic image of Darth Sidious flickered beside him, the Emperor's hooded form radiating displeasure that made even Dooku, a Sith Lord in his own right, tense with caution. You are certain of this intelligence? Sidious asked, his voice a low rasp that seemed to claw at the air itself. My spies within the Republic Senate are quite reliable. My master, Dooku replied smoothly. Maul lives. More disturbing still, the Jedi have taken him into their temple. Kenobi believes he can be redeemed. The last word dripped with aristocratic disdain. Sidious was silent for a long moment, his yellow eyes glowing beneath his hood. Dooku could feel the rage building through their connection, not the hot fury that Maul had always displayed, but the cold, calculating anger of a predator whose carefully laid plans had been disrupted. This is an unforeseen complication, Sidious finally said. Maul knows too much. His training, my methods, his awareness of the grand plan, all of it makes him a liability now that He is no longer under my control. Then you wish him eliminated, Dooku stated rather than asked. I wish him erased from existence, Sidious corrected. Along with any Jedi foolish enough to believe a Sith can change his nature. This presents an opportunity, Lord Tyrannus. The Jedi have welcomed a viper into their nest. When it strikes, as it inevitably will, their faith in such mercy will be shattered. And if it doesn't, strike on its own. The Emperor's smile was a cruel slash across his shadowed face. We can always encourage it. Dooku bowed his head slightly. I will see it done personally, Master. Maul was always a blunt instrument, but he served his purpose once. Now he will serve it one final time. As an example of the Jedi's fatal naivety, the hologram flickered and vanished, leaving Dooku alone with his thoughts. He turned to his tactical officer, a sharp-eyed human named Kalani. Prepare a stealth team. Our best infiltrators, those with experience penetrating high-security facilities. And summon the assassin Ventress. She has unfinished business with the Jedi Temple. At once, Count, Kalani replied, already moving to execute the orders. Dooku returned his gaze to the viewport, his elegant features contemplative. He had been Jedi once, trained by Yoda. Himself before ideological differences and personal tragedy led him to embrace Sidious's vision. He understood the Order's weakness, their insistence on seeing potential for good even in obvious darkness. It was a beautiful sentiment. It was also fatal. Maul, Dooku murmured to the empty bridge. You were always too passionate, too obvious in your hatred. Perhaps that's why our master discarded you. But your final purpose remains. To show the galaxy what happens when compassion overrides wisdom. 3 days later, the assault began not with explosions or armies, but with whispers. Obi-Wan was in the archives, researching ancient texts on Force purification when his comlink chimed urgently. Mace Windu's voice came through, tense and controlled. Council chambers. Immediately, we have a situation. When Obi-Wan arrived, he found the council already assembled in person, a rarity during wartime. The holographic displays showed security footage from various locations throughout. Coruscant's underlevels. Bodies. Dozens of them. Civilians and low-level criminals. All killed with lightsaber wounds. The signature burns were unmistakable. This happened 2 hours ago, Mace said without preamble. Multiple locations, simultaneous attacks. The kills are precise, efficient, and bear the hallmarks of Form 7 combat. Juyo, specifically. Obi-Wan felt his stomach drop. You think, Maul. We don't think, Ki-Adi-Mundi interrupted sharply. We know. Security footage shows a Zabrak male with cybernetic legs matching. Maul's specifications. He was seen leaving 3 of the crime scenes. That's impossible, Obi-Wan protested. Maul has been in his quarters under constant surveillance. I would have been alerted if. Yoda tapped his Jimmer stick against the floor, silencing the room. Checked, we have. In his quarters, Maul remains. Meditating, he appears to be. But the footage, conclusive it is. Anakin leaned forward, his expression grim with vindication. I told you this was a mistake. He's playing us, Master Obi-Wan. Everything, the broken act, the tears, the talk of redemption, it was all manipulation. Classic Sith deception. Or, Shakti interjected thoughtfully. Someone wants us to believe that. The timing is too convenient. We agree to attempt Maul's redemption, and within days, a Maul lookalike appears committing atrocities? This has the markings of a trap. Agreed. Obi-Wan said quickly, grasping at the logic. Count Dooku would have every reason to eliminate Maul as a potential intelligence source. And what better way than to turn us against him? Mace Windu shook his head. I want to believe that, Obi-Wan. But we can't ignore the evidence. If there's even a chance that Maul has somehow escaped or is orchestrating these attacks, we need to confront him directly. Then let me do it, Obi-Wan said firmly. If this is Dooku's manipulation, Maul will help us prove it. If it isn't, he met Mace's eyes steadily. Then I will do what must be done. The council agreed, though several members clearly believed the experiment had already failed. Obi-Wan left the chambers with Anakin following close behind. You're making a mistake, Anakin said as they walked. He's Sith, Obi-Wan. That doesn't just go away because we want it to. No, Obi-Wan agreed quietly. But neither does the possibility of redemption disappear, simply because we're afraid to believe in it. Trust in the Force, Anakin. If Maul has fallen back to darkness, the Force will reveal the truth. They reached Maul's quarters to find the temple guards already on high alert. The door opened to reveal Maul exactly where he should be, kneeling in meditation, eyes closed, seemingly unaware of the crisis unfolding around him. But as Obi-Wan entered, those yellow eyes snapped open. An immediate awareness flooded Maul's expression. "Something's wrong," Maul said, rising to his feet with fluid grace. "I can feel it. The dark side is active. Close. What's happened?" "Someone matching your description has been murdering civilians in the underlevels," Obi-Wan said, watching Maul's reaction carefully through the Force. "Multiple witnesses. Security footage. All of it points to you." Maul's face cycled through confusion, then understanding, then cold fury. "Dooku. It has to be. He's trying to sabotage my redemption before it even begins." He moved toward the door, but the temple guards immediately leveled their lightsaber pikes. "You're not going anywhere until we verify your innocence," Anakin said sharply. "My innocence?" Maul's laugh was bitter. "I am many things, Skywalker, but innocent isn't one of them. However, I didn't kill those people. I've been here, under your surveillance, fighting battles in my own mind while someone, likely my replacement, frames me for murder." His hands clenched. "Let me help track whoever this is. I know Dooku's tactics. I know Sith strategy. You need me." "What we need," Mace Windu said, entering the room with several other council members, "is the truth. Maul, you will submit to a deep Force probe. If you're telling the truth, it will be revealed. If you're lying—" He left the threat unspoken. Maul looked to Obi-Wan, something almost like betrayal flickering across his features. "You agreed to this?" "I agreed to find the truth," Obi-Wan said softly. "If you're innocent, this will prove it beyond doubt. But you have to consent willingly. A Force probe would tell us nothing reliable." For a moment, Maul stood at a crossroads. The dark side whispered seductively, "They doubt you. They'll never trust you. Strike now while you can." But the fragile thread of light he'd been nurturing over the past days whispered something different. "This is the test. This is where you prove your choice was real. Do it," Maul said finally, meeting Mace Windu's stern gaze. "Probe my mind. Tear through every memory if you must. You'll find no deception about these murders." Mace nodded slowly, stepping forward. "This will be invasive and painful. Your mental barriers will be temporarily shattered." "Are you certain?" Maul knelt, offering his mind to the one Jedi who trusted him least. "I am certain. I have nothing left to hide." As Mace placed his hands on either side of Maul's head and the Force probe began, Obi-Wan watched his former enemy tremble with the strain of keeping his mental defenses lowered. It was an act of profound vulnerability from a being who had known nothing but paranoia and survival for decades. And somewhere in the underlevels of Coruscant, the real killer smiled and prepared for the next strike. The Force probe felt like drowning in fire. Mace Windu's presence swept through Maul's consciousness with the precision of a surgical blade, peeling back layers of memory, emotion, and carefully constructed mental barriers. Maul had endured torture before. Sidious had made certain of that, but this was different. This required him to actively suppress every defensive instinct, to let another being rifle through the darkest corners of his psyche without resistance. Mace saw everything. The child on Dathomir, screaming. The endless training sessions where failure meant agony. The missions, the murders, the slow dissolution of anything resembling conscience. And then Lotho Minor, the years of madness. The spider legs, the moment Obi-Wan had offered his hand. Mace felt the sincerity of Maul's confusion, his desperate hope, his bone-deep terror that redemption might be impossible. Most critically, Mace saw the past 3 days from Maul's perspective: meditation, struggle, pain, but no escapes, no communications, no murders. When Mace finally withdrew, Maul collapsed forward onto his hands, gasping as if he'd run a marathon. Blood trickled from his nose, a sign of how deep the probe had gone. The Jedi Master stood over him, his expression unreadable. "He's telling the truth," Mace said finally, and several council members in the room visibly relaxed. The murders were not his doing. Someone is attempting to sabotage this process. He looked down at Maul with what might have been the faintest hint of respect. "And you allowed a complete invasion of your mind to prove it. That took courage. or desperation, Maul managed, wiping the blood from his face. I need you to believe me. Without that, I'm just a prisoner waiting for execution. Anakin stepped forward, his earlier certainty shaken. If it wasn't him, then who? A doppelganger? A shapeshifter? A Sith assassin using surgical alterations and cybernetics to mimic Maul's appearance, Obi-Wan theorized. It's elaborate, but Dooku has the resources. The question is, what's the endgame? Simply discrediting our redemption attempt seems insufficient motivation. Maul rose slowly to his feet, his mind still reeling from the probe, but his tactical instincts sharpening. It's not just about discrediting the attempt. It's about destroying your faith in the possibility of redemption entirely. Sidious thinks in decades, in generational impacts. If he can make the Jedi Order close its heart to the idea that even the fallen can return to the light, he met Obi-Wan's eyes. Then he ensures that when your own fall to darkness, they stay fallen. The implication hung heavy in the air. Several council members glanced at Anakin, who shifted uncomfortably under the attention. There's more, Maul continued, his voice gaining strength. The murders are just the opening move. Dooku will escalate. He'll target someone connected to the temple, someone whose death will be blamed on me and will be emotionally devastating enough to override logic. His yellow eyes swept the assembled Jedi. If I were still planning this mission for Sidious, I would target the younglings. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Yoda's ears flattened against his head, and several Jedi hands moved instinctively toward lightsabers. You think Dooku would dare attack the temple directly? Shak Ti asked, her calm finally cracking. I think Dooku would burn the galaxy if Sidious commanded it. Maul replied bluntly. And what better way to prove the Jedi's compassion is weakness than to use it to gain access to your most vulnerable? The imposter establishes a pattern of killings. You search for him, and while your attention is divided, the real attack comes from within. Mace Windu's comlink chimed before anyone could respond. The voice that came through was panicked. Young, one of the temple's instructors. Masters, there's an intruder in the youngling's quarters. He looks like the Zabrak he's. The transmission cut to screams. Maul moved before conscious thought, his body reacting with the combat instincts of a lifetime. He was out the door before the temple guards could react, sprinting through the corridors with force-enhanced speed. Behind him, he heard Obi-Wan and Anakin following, their footsteps pounding in pursuit. The younglings' quarters were in the temple's eastern wing, a deliberately protected area far from external access points. Maul's mind raced as he ran. The imposter had been inside the temple all along, probably hidden among the service staff or using stealth technology, which meant Dooku's infiltration was far more sophisticated than anyone had anticipated. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with a group of fleeing younglings, their faces streaked with tears. A human boy, no more than 8, pointed back toward the quarters. He has Master Korra. He's going to kill her. Maul didn't slow. He burst through the doors into a scene of chaos. Training equipment was overturned. Scorch marks scarred the walls. And in the center of it all stood a figure that could have been Maul's twin. Same tattoos, same cybernetic legs, same yellow eyes blazing with manufactured hatred. The imposter held a Twi'lek Jedi instructor by the throat. A red lightsaber ignited and pressed against her neck. Well, the imposter said in a voice modulated to match. Maul's. The original arrives. How touching. Did you come to watch me finish what you started, brother? Maul's hands remained at his sides, deliberately empty. He had no lightsaber. The council had not yet trusted him with one, but his presence in the Force was enough. You're not my brother. You're a tool, just as I was. Dooku sent you to die here so that my redemption dies with you. Redemption? The imposter laughed. And there was genuine Sith conditioning in that sound. He'd been trained. Broken, rebuilt just as Maul had been. There is no redemption for creatures like us. We're weapons. We kill or we're discarded. Those are the only options Sidious offers. Then choose a third option, Maul said, taking a careful step forward. I did. Put down the lightsaber, release the Jedi, and we can. We can what? Become servants of the light? The imposter's grip tightened on Master Korra's throat, making her gasp. I've seen your mind, Maul. Dooku showed me the recordings of your interrogation. You're weak. You let them break you. I won't make that mistake. Obi-Wan and Anakin entered behind Maul. Lightsabers ignited, but Maul raised a hand stopping them. This was his burden to carry. "You think submission to the light side is weakness?" Maul asked, and something in his voice made the imposter hesitate. "I thought that too. For decades, I believed that pain was strength and compassion was failure. But I was wrong. The Sith don't make us strong, they make us hollow. They burn away everything. That makes us alive until all that's left is rage and emptiness." He took another step closer. "You can feel it, can't you? The void where your choices used to be? The certainty that you'll be discarded the moment you stop being useful?" The imposter's hand trembled slightly. "Stop. Stop talking. Dooku didn't send you here to kill Jedi." Maul continued, his voice softer now. "He sent you here to die, to be cut down by these Jedi, so that my redemption becomes impossible. You're not an assassin, you're a sacrifice. And for what? To serve a master who sees you as less than the dirt beneath his boots." I said stop. The imposter's control cracked. And in that moment of distraction, Master Korra acted. Her Leku whipped forward, striking the imposter's eyes with stunning precision. He staggered back, releasing her, and she rolled clear. But instead of pressing the attack, Maul did something no one expected. He threw himself between the imposter and the approaching Jedi. Arms spread wide, weaponless and vulnerable. "Don't kill him," Maul said urgently. "He's a victim, not a monster. Dooku made him into this, just as Sidious made me. If you cut him down, you prove their point, that beings like us can't be saved, only destroyed. But if you show him mercy..." He looked back at the imposter, whose expression had shifted from rage to confusion. "Then you prove that the light is stronger than their darkness." Anakin's lightsaber hummed dangerously close to Maul's head. "Get out of the way. He tried to kill younglings." "He tried to make you kill him in front of younglings," Maul corrected. "There's a difference. Look at him, really look. He's terrified. He's trapped. He's exactly what I was 3 days ago." The imposter had backed against the wall. His lightsaber still ignited but lowered. Behind his manufactured hatred, something raw and desperate flickered across his features. "Why are you doing this?" "I was sent to destroy you." "Because someone gave me a chance I didn't deserve," Maul said simply. "And if that chance was real for me, then it's real for you too." For a long, suspended moment, the room balanced on a blade's edge. Then, slowly, the imposter's lightsaber deactivated. He fell to his knees, the weapon clattering from nerveless fingers. I don't know who I am," he whispered. "They took a prisoner from the Zygerian slave pits, altered my body, broke my mind, and rebuilt me to be you. I don't even remember my real face." Obi-Wan lowered his lightsaber, exchanging glances with Mace Windu, who had just arrived. The Jedi Master's expression was complex, surprise mixed with something that might have been approval. "Then we'll help you remember," Obi-Wan said quietly. "Just as we're helping Maul. The path won't be easy, but you won't walk it alone." As temple guards moved in to secure the imposter with stun cuffs rather than execution, Maul remained standing in the middle of the room, breathing hard. He had just defended Jedi younglings. He had just prevented a death. He had just chosen mercy over vengeance. The light side flickered a little brighter in his chest. And for the first time, it didn't feel like burning. It felt like warmth. Anakin approached, his expression troubled. "You could have let us kill him. Would have been easier. Would have proven you weren't working with Dooku." Maul met the young Jedi's eyes steadily. "Easier isn't always right, Skywalker. I'm beginning to learn that." As the room settled and the frightened younglings were comforted by their instructors, Maul felt the weight of what he'd just done. Not the tactical victory, but the moral one. He had saved a life instead of taking one. It was a small thing, perhaps, but for someone who had spent decades as an instrument of death, it felt like a revolution. The dark side whispered that he'd made a strategic error, that mercy was weakness. But the light side sang. The planet Mandalore hung in space like a scarred jewel, its once verdant surface still bearing the wounds of centuries of war. Obi-Wan stood at the viewport of the Republic shuttle, his expression troubled as they approached. Beside him, Maul stared at the world below with an intensity that made the air around him seem to vibrate. "You don't have to do this," Obi-Wan said quietly. "The Council would understand if you refused this mission." "No," Maul replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil. Obi-Wan could sense through the Force. "This is exactly what I need to do. I conquered Mandalore through deception and violence. I executed Duchess Satine in front of you to make you suffer. I armed Death Watch and turned them into my personal army. His hands clenched. If I'm to truly walk away from darkness, I must face what I did here. I must try to make it right. 2 weeks had passed since the incident with the imposter, who now resided in the same meditation chambers as Maul, slowly recovering his fractured identity under Jedi guidance. The Council had been reluctantly impressed by Maul's actions, though trust remained fragile. When intelligence arrived that Death Watch remnants on Mandalore were planning attacks on Republic supply lines, Mace Windu had made an unexpected proposal. Send Maul. They'll follow him or try to kill him, Mace had reasoned. Either way, we'll learn what his presence truly means to those he once commanded. Now, descending through Mandalore's atmosphere toward the capital city of Sundari, Maul felt the weight of his past pressing down like a physical force. The dark side still prowled at the edges of his consciousness, especially strong here where he had once ruled through fear. Anakin Skywalker sat across the shuttle bay, his gaze flickering between Maul and Obi-Wan. He'd been assigned to this mission over his own objections, another test, this time for both the former Sith and the Jedi struggling with his own darkness. Captain Rex and a squad of clone troopers completed their team, their DC-15 blasters never far from ready position. The shuttle touched down on a landing platform outside Sundari. The city had been rebuilt after the devastation Maul's rule had brought, but the scars remained. Buildings still showed blast marks. Memorials dotted the streets for those who had died in the chaos. As Maul descended the ramp, he felt the stares of Mandalorian civilians, recognition, hatred, and fear mixing in expressions that cut deeper than any lightsaber wound. Murderer, someone spat from the crowd gathering at a safe distance. Monster, another voice called. Maul stopped walking, forcing Obi-Wan and Anakin to halt beside him. Instead of ignoring the accusations or responding with anger, Maul turned to face the crowd directly. "You're right," he said, his voice carrying across the platform. "I am a murderer. I am a monster. I came to your world and destroyed your peace. I killed your Duchess. I turned your warriors against their own people, for my own ambition." He took a breath. "I cannot undo what I did. I cannot bring back those who died. But I am here now to face what I've done, and to help stop others from continuing the violence I started." The crowd murmured, confused by this admission. Mandalorians respected strength, but they also respected accountability, and no Sith Lord had ever simply admitted their crimes without justification or deflection. A figure pushed through the crowd, armor painted in the colors of Death Watch, blue and gray, marked with the symbol of the Mandalorian skull. The warrior's helmet came off, revealing a scarred human woman with cold eyes. Maul recognized her, Commander Rook, one of his former lieutenants. "Pretty words, Maul," she said, her hand resting on her blaster. "But words don't absolve blood debt. You promised us power, glory, a return to Mandalorian strength. Instead, you used us as pawns and abandoned us when the Republic came." "I did," Maul agreed. "I manipulated Death Watch's desire for tradition and strength, turned it into a weapon, and discarded you when you were no longer useful. That's what Sith do. We corrupt what we touch." He took a step toward her, hands deliberately visible and empty. "But I am no longer Sith." Rook's laugh was bitter. "No? Then what are you? A Jedi?" She said the word like a curse. "You expect us to believe you've suddenly grown a conscience." "I expect nothing," Maul said. "I only offer the truth. The Jedi are attempting to redeem me. Whether that's possible, I don't know. But I know that the path I walked before led only to suffering, yours and mine. The Death Watch warriors who still follow the ways. I taught her walking that same path. It ends in ashes and regret." "He speaks wisdom," a new voice interjected, and the crowd parted for a Mandalorian in distinctive armor, not Death Watch colors, but the traditional Beskar of clan leadership. The warrior removed her helmet, revealing the weathered face of an older woman. "I am Ursa Wren of Clan Wren. I fought against Maul's rule, lost family to his ambition." She approached until she stood directly before him. "Why should any Mandalorian trust that your change is real?" Maul met her gaze unflinchingly. "You shouldn't trust it. Trust must be earned through action, not words. I ask only for the chance to prove that the warrior who conquered Mandalore is not who I choose to be anymore." Ursa studied him for a long moment, then looked to Obi-Wan. "Jedi Kenobi, You vouch for this creature. I vouch that his desire for redemption is genuine, Obi-Wan said carefully. Whether he achieves it remains to be seen. But I believe the attempt is worth making. The Jedi are fools, Commander Rook interjected sharply. But we are not. Maul, you want to prove yourself? Then prove it with blood. Death Watch remnants are gathering in the mountains. Your former soldiers who still believe in the power you promised. They raid our villages, kill our people, all in the name of the true Mandalore you claim to be. She pointed north, toward the jagged peaks in the distance. Face them. Stop them. Show us that you truly reject what you built. Rook, that's suicide, Ursa said sharply. Even if he wanted to help, those warriors are fanatics. They'll kill him on sight or die trying. Then let them try, Maul said. His voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who had already accepted death as a possibility. I will go. I will face those I corrupted, and I will try to turn them from the darkness I led them into. If I fail, if they kill me, perhaps that's the justice Mandalore deserves. Anakin stepped forward, frustrated. This is insane. We came here for intelligence gathering, not a suicide mission based on some Mandalorian honor code. Honor is all Mandalorians have, Ursa replied. Strip away the armor, the weapons, the warrior traditions, and what remains is the code we live by. Maul violated that code. If he wants redemption in Mandalorian eyes, he must answer for it in the Mandalorian way. Obi-Wan placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, calming his former Padawan. We'll accompany him. Ensure this doesn't turn into a bloodbath. No, Maul said firmly. This is my burden, my responsibility. If I bring Jedi with me, they'll see it as Republic interference, not genuine remorse. I must go alone. Absolutely not, Obi-Wan countered. I didn't bring you across the galaxy just to watch you throw your life away. Maul turned to face his unlikely mentor, and something passed between them, an understanding built on their shared history of violence and loss. Kenobi, you offered me redemption because you believed it was possible. But redemption isn't passive. It's not about sitting in meditation chambers and feeling sorry for what I've done. It's about walking into the fire and trying to pull others out, even if I burn. The Jedi Master was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then take this. He unclipped his spare lightsaber, a simple training saber he'd brought for demonstrations, and offered it to Maul. I trust you too. Use it only in defense. Prove me right. Maul stared at the weapon as if it were made of neutronium. A lightsaber, the weapon of the Jedi and Sith alike. He had wielded one in service to darkness. Could he truly carry one in service to light? He took the weapon with trembling hands. I will not fail this trust. Commander Rook provided coordinates to the Death Watch encampment, along with a grim warning. They number at least 40 warriors, all trained in the old ways. Many were your personal guard, Maul. They know your fighting style. They know your tactics. Your only advantage is surprise. They won't expect you to come alone. And they certainly won't expect you to come asking them to stand down. As Maul prepared to depart on a speeder bike Clan Ren provided, Obi-Wan approached one final time. Remember what we've practiced. The light side doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger because you fight for something beyond yourself. These warriors are trapped in the same darkness you're escaping. Help them see another way. And if they refuse, then you defend yourself without killing if possible, Obi-Wan said. But Maul, if it comes down to their lives or yours, you are permitted to survive. Redemption doesn't require martyrdom. Maul nodded, started the speeder, and headed north toward the mountains. Behind him, he felt Obi-Wan's presence in the Force, worried, hopeful, and surprisingly confident. That confidence was almost harder to bear than the hatred of the Mandalorians he'd wronged. The mountain path wound through narrow canyons and ancient ruins, remnants of Mandalore's warrior past. As Maul climbed higher, he felt the dark side growing stronger, not from the planet itself, but from the concentrated hatred and violence of the warriors ahead. They had embraced everything he'd taught them. That might makes right. That mercy is weakness, that only through domination could Mandalore be great. They had learned well, perhaps too well. The encampment appeared suddenly around a bend, a dozen shelters, built into a natural cave system, defensible and hidden. Sentries spotted him immediately, and alarms echoed off the canyon walls. By the time Maul reached the camp's entrance, 40 Mandalorian warriors stood in formation, weapons drawn. Every barrel and blade pointed directly at him. At their center stood a massive figure in crimson armor etched with kill markings. Gar Saxon, Maul's former super commando leader. The warrior's voice boomed across the assembled troops. The traitor returns. Did you come to beg forgiveness, Maul? Or did you come to die? Maul dismounted the speeder slowly, deliberately. He made no move toward his weapon. I came to tell you the truth, Saxon. The truth about what I did to you. What I made you become. And to offer you the same choice I was given, a way out of the darkness. Saxon's helmet tilted, and even through the mask, Maul could feel his former lieutenant's contempt. You think we want redemption? You made us strong. Under your rule, we conquered. Now you slink back wearing Jedi chains and expect us to follow you into weakness. I expect nothing, Maul said. I only ask you to question what I taught you. To look at where that path leads. Power without purpose. Victory without meaning. Strength that isolates rather than unites. Is that truly the Mandalorian way? Or is it just the Sith way with Mandalorian armor? The question hung in the air like a thermal detonator. Several warriors shifted uncomfortably. Gar Saxon took a step forward, his hand moving to the Biscad blade at his side. There's only one way this ends, Maul. You fight us. Prove you're still worthy of leading. Or you die as the traitor you've become. Choose. Maul's hand moved to the lightsaber at his belt. The weapon Obi-Wan had entrusted to him. The symbol of everything he was trying to become. He ignited it, the blue blade humming to life. Not the crimson of the Sith, but the color of the Jedi. Then I choose to fight, Maul said quietly. But not to prove my strength. To prove that there's another way. 40 Mandalorian warriors charged as one, and Maul stepped forward to meet them. The first warrior came at Maul with a Biscad raised high. The traditional Mandalorian iron sword singing through the air. Maul sidestepped. His movements fluid despite weeks of meditation rather than combat training. The blue lightsaber came up, not to kill, but to disarm. The blade kissed the Biscad's edge, sending it spinning away with a shower of sparks. Maul followed with a force push, gentle but firm, sending the warrior tumbling backward into his comrades. I don't want to hurt you, Maul called out, his voice carrying over the chaos. Any of you. Then you'll die quickly, Gar Saxon growled, opening fire with his twin Wester 34 blasters. Scarlet bolts cut through the air, and Maul's body moved on instinct, deflecting, dodging. His Form 7 training adapting itself to defensive rather than offensive applications. The deflected shots struck rocks and equipment, deliberately aimed away from the Mandalorians themselves. 3 warriors activated their jetpacks, rocketing overhead to attack from multiple angles. Maul felt their approach through the Force, sensed their intent, and made a choice. Instead of cutting them down as they descended, he leaped upward with Force-enhanced strength, intercepted one mid-flight, and used the warrior's momentum to redirect all 3 into a controlled crash, landing in a snowbank. Bruised but alive. You're holding back, one of the downed warriors said, confused and angry. Why? Because I'm trying to be better than what I was, Maul replied, landing in a crouch as more warriors surrounded him. And so can you. But they didn't want better. They wanted the Maul who had promised them glory. They wanted the conqueror who had validated their hunger for power. The warrior who told them mercy was weakness and strength was everything. That Maul would have cut through them like wheat before a scythe. This Maul ducked under a vibroblade thrust, disarmed the attacker with a precise wrist lock, and sent her stumbling away unharmed. He caught a thermal detonator mid-throw with the Force and redirected it skyward, where it exploded harmlessly against the canyon wall. When a warrior charged with a Biscad aimed at his heart, Maul's lightsaber severed the blade itself, not the arm wielding it. You dishonor yourself, Gar Saxon shouted, genuine outrage in his voice. You taught us that combat demands commitment. That hesitation is death. Now you fight like a Jedi coward, unwilling to finish what you start. Maul blocked another flurry of blaster fire, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. No, Saxon. I fought like a Sith coward, hiding behind cruelty because I was too afraid to face what I'd become. The Jedi way isn't weakness. It's harder than anything I've ever done. A rocket whistled toward him. Maul thrust out his hand, catching it with the Force mere meters from impact. For a heartbeat, he held it suspended in the air, the rocket's propellant screaming against his telekinetic grip. Every dark side instinct told him to redirect it into the crowd, to turn their weapons against them, to demonstrate absolute dominance. Instead, he crushed the rocket's warhead with the Force, disabling it, and let the inert casing clatter to the ground. I was Darth Sidious's weapon, Maul said, his voice ringing across the suddenly quiet encampment. He took a child, broke him, and rebuilt him into an instrument of death. I thought I was powerful. I thought I was free. But I was neither. I was a slave pretending to be a master. He deactivated the lightsaber, standing defenseless before the assembled warriors. Every lesson I taught you was a lie designed to perpetuate that slavery. The strong don't just dominate, they protect. Victory without honor is just brutality with better armor. And Mandalore doesn't need more weapons. It needs warriors who know why they fight. For a moment, no one moved. Then Gar Saxon stepped forward, his biscad drawn, the blade gleaming in the mountain sun. Beautiful words, Maul. But words are air. You want to prove you've changed? Then accept single combat. You and me. If you win, we'll listen to whatever Jedi philosophy you've swallowed. If I win, he smiled behind his helmet. You won't have to worry about redemption anymore. Maul should have felt fear. Instead, he felt something unexpected, gratitude. This was a language he understood, a ritual that transcended his confusion about what he was becoming. Trial by combat was honest in ways philosophy couldn't be. I accept, Maul said. But understand, I will not kill you, Saxon, even if you force my hand. We'll see about that. The warriors formed a circle, the traditional Mandalorian combat arena. Maul stepped into the center, reigniting the blue lightsaber. Gar Saxon entered from the opposite side, biscad in one hand, vibroblade in the other, armor bristling with weapons and technology that Maul himself had helped acquire during his rule. They began. Saxon fought like a predator, aggressive and unrelenting. The biscad came in high while the vibroblade struck low, forcing Maul to defend multiple angles simultaneously. Jetpack bursts gave Saxon unpredictable mobility, and integrated wrist rockets forced Maul to stay constantly moving. This was the Mandalorian style at its finest, brutal, practical, and utterly without mercy. But Maul had spent weeks doing something he'd never done in his entire life. He'd been learning to fight without rage. His movements were cleaner now, more efficient. The Force flowed through him not as a weapon to be seized, but as a current to ride. He saw Saxon's attacks before they landed, not through precognition born of fear, but through genuine connection to the living Force. The lightsaber wove defensive patterns, redirecting Saxon's blades without attempting lethal counters. When Saxon launched a wrist rocket at point-blank range, Maul caught his arm with the Force, gently but firmly redirecting the shot into the canyon wall. When the Mandalorian attempted a jetpack-assisted flying knee strike, Maul sidestepped and used Saxon's own momentum to send him tumbling. "Fight me," Saxon roared, frustration bleeding through his vocoder. "Stop playing Jedi and fight." "I am fighting," Maul replied, his voice strangely calm. "I'm fighting the part of me that wants to kill you. I'm fighting the dark side that tells me mercy is weakness. I'm fighting everything. Sidious made me." The lightsaber hummed through another defensive arc. "And Saxon, I'm winning that fight." The admission seemed to enrage the Mandalorian further. He pressed the attack with renewed fury, biscad and vibroblade working in perfect synchronization. But Maul had trained warriors like Saxon. He knew every technique, every favored combination, every psychological trigger. And unlike before, he used that knowledge not to dominate, but to deflect. The duel spiraled across the combat circle, blade meeting blade, force pushing against jetpack thrust, strategy against strategy. The watching warriors grew quiet, sensing something profound in the conflict. This wasn't just combat. It was a philosophical argument waged in steel and plasma. Finally, Maul saw his opening. Saxon overextended on a thrust, his armor's weight carrying him fractionally off balance. A Sith would have exploited it with a killing blow. A pragmatist would have disarmed and humiliated him. Instead, Maul did something that shocked everyone watching, including himself. He deactivated his lightsaber and caught Saxon's wrist, stopping the blade centimeters from his own chest. "I yield," Maul said quietly. The canyon fell absolutely silent. "What?" Saxon's voice was strangled with disbelief. You're winning. You had the advantage. Why would you?" "Because this fight was never about who's stronger," Maul interrupted. It was about whether I've truly changed. And if I haven't changed enough to choose vulnerability over victory, then I'm still Sith in everything but name. He released Saxon's wrist, stepping back with arms spread. So I yield, Saxon. Not because you beat me, but because I refuse to let this become about dominance. If you want to kill me, then do it. But know that you'll be killing someone who's trying, desperately, imperfectly trying, to be better than what he was. Gar Saxon stood frozen, blade still extended. Behind his helmet, Maul sensed a war being fought between the teachings. Maul had instilled, and something deeper. Something that remembered why Mandalorians had codes and honor in the first place. Slowly, impossibly, Saxon lowered his weapon. You're either the bravest warrior I've ever met, the Mandalorian said quietly, or the most broken. Maybe both. He looked around at his assembled troops. Stand down. The order rippled through the Death Watch remnants like a shockwave. Weapons lowered. Several warriors removed their helmets, revealing expressions of confusion, anger, and something that might have been hope. A younger warrior, barely out of his teens, stepped forward. Commander Saxon, if he's truly changed, if the path he taught us was wrong, what do we do now? It was Maul who answered. You remember what Mandalore was before I corrupted it. Not the Mandalore of endless war and domination, but the Mandalore of clans and honor, of protecting your people, not conquering others. He looked at each warrior in turn. Death Watch was born from a desire to preserve Mandalorian strength. That desire wasn't wrong, but I twisted it into something toxic. You don't have to follow that path anymore. You can choose differently. And what about you? Gar Saxon asked. Where does a Sith Lord who gave up his power go? I don't know, Maul admitted. Back to the Jedi for now. To continue learning what I should have learned as a child, that's strength without. Wisdom is just destruction in slow motion. That power without purpose is slavery. That, his voice caught slightly. That maybe, just maybe, I can spend the rest of my life trying to undo even a fraction of the harm I've caused. Ursa Wren's voice crackled over. Maul's comlink, she and Obi-Wan, had been monitoring from a distance. Maul, we watched everything. The clans will want to hear about this. Whatever you just did here, it's the beginning of something. Maybe not redemption yet, but definitely something. As the Death Watch warriors began the long process of questioning everything they'd believed, Maul felt the dark side's grip loosen another fraction. It was still there, still prowling, still whispering seductive promises of power and certainty. But its voice was growing quieter, and in its place, tentative and fragile as a newborn star. The light side grew stronger. The holographic image of Darth Sidious filled the chamber aboard Count Dooku's flagship, his presence so malevolent that even the air seemed to recoil. Dooku knelt before his master, his elegant composure barely masking the tension radiating from every line of his body. Maul has become a liability far greater than anticipated, Sidious hissed, his yellow eyes burning with cold fury beneath his hood. Not only has he survived our attempts to discredit him, but he has begun inspiring others. Death Watch warriors lay down their arms. An assassin we crafted specifically to destroy him now meditates alongside Jedi younglings. This cannot stand. Master, perhaps we have underestimated the psychological impact of genuine redemption. Dooku ventured carefully. The Jedi Council remains divided. We could still exploit. No. The word cut, like a vibroblade. I taught Maul everything he knows about pain, about hatred, about the dark side's seductive power. If he can truly break free of that conditioning, then others might believe they can as well. Sidious leaned forward, his holographic form seeming to fill the entire room. Including you, Lord Tyrannus. The implicit threat hung in the air like ozone before a lightning strike. Dooku's hand tightened imperceptibly on his lightsaber hilt. What would you have me do, my master? I will handle Maul personally, Sidious said. But first, he must be isolated from his Jedi protectors. The Council trusts him, marginally more now after his Mandalorian performance. Use that. Feed intelligence through our Republic contacts, something that requires Maul's unique expertise. Draw him out, and when he is alone, the Emperor's smile was wound across his shadowed face. I will remind him what it means to be Sith. 3 days later, the Jedi Council received urgent intelligence from Republic Naval Command. A separatist research station in the Renvar system had been broadcasting. Encrypted signals using codes that matched Sith communication protocols from before the Clone Wars, specifically, codes that only Maul would have used during his time as Sidious's apprentice. A trap, this obviously is, Yoda said, his ears flat against his head as the council debated. Obviously, Mace Windu agreed. But the intelligence could be valuable. If Sidious is using Maul's old protocols, it suggests he's trying to communicate with remaining Sith assets that Maul would know about. Assets we could neutralize. Obi-Wan studied the data with growing unease. Or Sidious wants us to think that. Wants us to send Maul into a situation designed specifically to break him. Then we send a full strike team, Ki-Adi-Mundi suggested. Maul for his knowledge of the codes, but supported by experienced Jedi Knights and clone battalions. Anakin, who had been unusually quiet during the debate, finally spoke. Maul should be the one to decide. He's proven himself on Mandalore. Maybe it's time we actually trust his judgment instead of just observing him like a science experiment. The comment drew surprised looks from several council members. Anakin's hostility toward Maul had been slowly eroding over the past weeks, replaced by something more complex, not quite friendship, but a grudging respect between two warriors who understood darkness intimately. When Maul was summoned to the council chambers and briefed on the situation, he listened with the focused intensity of someone who had spent decades analyzing Sith tactics, his yellow eyes still carrying traces of the dark side, despite his progress, narrowed as he studied the signal patterns. "It's him," Maul said quietly. "Sidious. I recognize the encryption layering. He used this exact pattern when he wanted to ensure only I could decode his messages during my apprenticeship." He looked up at the assembled masters. "This is a personal summons. He wants to face me directly. Then we definitely send support," Obi-Wan said firmly. "No." Maul's voice carried absolute certainty. "If Sidious senses other Force sensitives, he'll simply vanish. He's a phantom, a shadow. He reveals himself only when he controls every variable." But Maul's expression hardened with something that wasn't quite the old hatred, but wasn't far from it. "If I go alone, he'll be confident, arrogant. He'll want to prove that his hold over me remains absolute, and that arrogance might be the only weakness we can exploit." "You're suggesting we use you as bait," Mace Windu stated. "I'm suggesting we use me as a weapon one final time," Maul corrected. "But this time, I choose the target and I choose the terms. Sidious made me what I was. It's only fitting that I'm the one who helps unmask him." Yoda closed his ancient eyes, communing with the Force. When he opened them again, they were troubled but resigned. "Great danger, I sense. But also necessary. This confrontation may be. Face his past. Maul must. If truly move forward, he will." The council voted, and despite significant opposition, the decision was made. Maul would go to Ren Various alone, but a Republic fleet would be positioned at the system's edge, ready to jump in at the first sign of separatist military presence. It was a compromise that satisfied no one, which probably meant it was the right choice. As Maul prepared for departure, Obi-Wan found him in the temple's meditation gardens, staring out at Coruscant's endless cityscape. The Jedi Master approached quietly, his presence in the Force calm but tinged with worry. "I trained you poorly if you think I can't sense you approaching, Kenobi," Maul said without turning. "I wanted you to know I was here," Obi-Wan replied, coming to stand beside him. "Maul, you don't have to prove anything, especially not to Sidious." "Don't I?" Maul turned to face him, and in the fading light, his tattoos seemed less like marks of Sith allegiance and more like scars of a brutal past. "Everything I've done, Mandalore, the imposter, the meditation, the struggle against the dark side, it's all been leading to this moment. Sidious is the chain I can't break while he still lives. He's the voice in my head telling me I'm weak for choosing mercy. He's the shadow that proves I was never anything more than a tool." "You're wrong," Obi-Wan said firmly. "You've already proven you're more than what he made you. Every choice you've made since Lotho Minor has been yours alone. Sidious doesn't define you anymore." "Then why does his voice still echo in my nightmares?" Maul's hands clenched. "Why do I still feel his lightning burning through my body when I meditate? Why does the dark side surge strongest when I remember his teachings?" He took a shuddering breath. "I need to face him, Obi-Wan. Not to prove I'm stronger, but to prove I'm different. And if I can't prove that, then maybe redemption was never really possible. Obi-Wan was silent for a long moment. Finally, he reached into his robes and withdrew something that made Maul's breath catch, a lightsaber hilt, elegant and deadly, constructed from durasteel and wrapped in worn leather. This belonged to Kagan, Obi-Wan said quietly. I've kept it all these years, unable to wield it, unable to let it go. It's been a symbol of my failure to protect him, of my rage at his killer, of everything I struggled to overcome after Naboo. He held it out to Maul. I want you to carry it to Ren Various. Maul stared at the weapon as if it were a thermal detonator. I can't. That's the lightsaber of the Jedi I murdered. How could you possibly? Because carrying it will remind you of what you're fighting for. Obi-Wan interrupted. You're not fighting to prove yourself to Sidious. You're fighting to honor the people your actions destroyed, to become worthy of the sacrifice. Kagan made believing that even darkness could be redeemed. He died believing that, Maul. Don't let him be wrong. With trembling hands, Maul accepted the lightsaber. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, he felt an overwhelming surge through the Force, not Qui-Gon's ghost, but the echo of who the Jedi Master had been: compassionate, wise, unorthodox, willing to see potential where others saw only threat. I will honor this, Maul whispered. I swear it. The journey to Renvar took 2 days through hyperspace. Maul spent the time in deep meditation, but not the peaceful kind he'd been practicing with Obi-Wan. This was combat meditation, preparing his mind for psychological warfare, shoring up his defenses against the manipulation he knew was coming. The dark side pressed against him constantly during the journey, growing stronger as he approached the system where Sidious waited. Renvar was a frozen wasteland, an ice planet dotted with ancient ruins from long-forgotten civilizations. The Separatist research station appeared on sensors, a small facility built into a mountain face, barely visible against the endless white. Maul's shuttle descended through howling winds and blinding snow, landing on a platform that looked like it hadn't been used in months. The station was empty. No droids, no personnel, no signs of life. Just endless corridors of durasteel and ice, lit by failing emergency lights that cast everything in sickly red. Maul walked deeper into the facility, Qui-Gon's lightsaber in his hand, but not ignited. Every sense stretched to its limit through the Force. He found Sidious waiting in the station's central chamber, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. The Emperor stood at the room's center, his back to Maul, hands folded within his robes. His presence in the Force was overwhelming, a black hole of malevolence that made even breathing difficult. My apprentice, Sidious said without turning. You returned to me at last. I am not your apprentice, Maul replied, his voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. Not anymore. I broke your chains, Sidious. I chose a different path. Sidious turned slowly, his yellow eyes blazing with amusement beneath his hood. Broke my chains? Oh, my dear deluded boy. You cannot break what was woven into your very DNA. I didn't just train you, I created you. Every thought you have, every instinct, every moment of rage or hatred or ambition, all of it traces back to me. You are my masterwork, Maul, and masterworks don't get to choose their purpose. You're wrong. Maul ignited Qui-Gon's lightsaber, the green blade casting light across the darkened chamber. I felt the light side. I've chosen mercy over vengeance. I've walked away from power when I could have seized it. That's not your creation. That's my choice. Sidious's laugh was like glass breaking. You think carrying a dead Jedi's weapon makes you redeemed? You think weeks of meditation erase decades of conditioning? Let me show you the truth, my apprentice. Let me show you what you really are. The Emperor raised his hands, and Force lightning erupted across the chamber, not aimed at Maul, but at the walls, the ceiling, the very air. The ancient Sith technique didn't just destroy, it revealed. Holographic projections burst to life all around them. Images from Maul's past flickering in the lightning's glow. Maul saw himself as a child, screaming under Sidious's torture. Saw himself executing his first victim, pride blazing in his young eyes. Saw the massacre on Orsi's academy where he'd killed everyone he'd ever called friend. Saw Qui-Gon's death, Savage Opress's death, the execution of Duchess Satine. Every atrocity, every murder, Every moment of cruelty played out in vivid detail. "This is who you are," Sidious whispered, his voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. "This is what I made you to be. And no amount of Jedi philosophy will ever wash away this blood." Maul fell to his knees, the lightsaber dropping from nerveless fingers. The dark side crashed over him like a tsunami. And for one terrible moment, he believed everything Sidious was saying. He was irredeemable. He was a monster. He was. No. The thought came quietly, but with absolute certainty. It wasn't his own voice he heard. It was Obi-Wan's. And beneath that, impossibly, he felt the echo of Kagan through the lightsaber at his feet. A reminder that even in death, the Jedi Master had believed in redemption. Maul picked up the lightsaber with shaking hands and stood. "You're right, Sidious. You made me into a killer. You took a child and broke him until nothing remained but your weapon. But you made one mistake." He ignited the blade again. And this time, his grip was steady. "You taught me to be ruthless, to never give up, to fight even when all hope is lost. And now I'm using those lessons against you. I will never stop fighting to be better than what you made me, even if it takes the rest of my life. Even if I fail 1,000 times, I will never stop trying." For the first time, something like genuine surprise flickered across Sidious's face. Then his expression hardened into pure hatred. "Then you will die trying." The Emperor's hands came up, and lightning, real, devastating, agonizing lightning, exploded toward Maul with the full power of the dark side behind it. The Force lightning struck Maul like the fist of an angry god. Every nerve in his body screamed as electricity coursed through him, burning, tearing, destroying. He'd felt Sidious's lightning before countless times during his training, but this was different. This wasn't punishment or discipline. This was execution. Qui-Gon's lightsaber came up instinctively, the green blade catching some of the lightning. But Maul's technique was sloppy, unpracticed. He'd spent weeks learning meditation and mercy, not combat. The overflow of electrical energy slammed him backward into the chamber wall, cracking the ancient stone. His cybernetic legs sparked and seized, and the smell of burning flesh filled the air. "Did you truly believe the Jedi could save you?" Sidious advanced slowly, lightning still dancing between his fingertips. "That a few weeks of peace would undo decades of perfection? I made you in darkness, Maul. Darkness is what you'll die in." Maul struggled to his feet, his body refusing to cooperate fully. The dark side within him roared to life, offering power, offering the strength to fight back with equal fury. It would be so easy to embrace it, to let the rage consume him one final time, to strike at his former master with everything he had been. But that was exactly what Sidious wanted. The Emperor wasn't just trying to kill him. He was trying to prove that redemption was impossible, that the dark side's hold was eternal. If Maul fell back on hatred to survive, then Sidious won even in death. "I don't need saving," Maul gasped, raising the lightsaber again. "I need to choose, every moment, every breath, to be something other than your weapon." He attacked, but not with the vicious geoform Sidious had taught him. Instead, he attempted the defensive. Sarisu techniques Obi-Wan had been drilling into him during their training sessions, techniques designed to protect, to endure, to outlast rather than overwhelm. His execution was clumsy, desperate, but the intent was clear. Sidious's crimson blade ignited with a snap hiss, meeting Maul's green in a shower of sparks. The Emperor's style was Form 7 like Maul's had been, but elevated to terrifying perfection, unpredictable, aggressive, each strike designed to kill. They dueled across the chamber, Maul giving ground constantly, barely deflecting blows that would have severed limbs or pierced vital organs. "Pathetic," Sidious hissed, his blade coming within centimeters of Maul's throat. "You fight like a frightened Padawan. Where is the warrior who conquered Mandalore? Where is the Sith Lord who killed Qui-Gon Jinn?" "Dead," Maul replied through gritted teeth, blocking another strike that nearly shattered his guard. "That version of me is dead, and I won't resurrect him, even to survive." "Then you've already lost." Sidious's assault intensified, becoming a blur of crimson fury that Maul could barely track. The Emperor wasn't just physically faster, he was channeling the dark side with such intensity that reality itself seemed to bend around him. Maul's defenses crumbled. A strike got through, burning a line across his shoulder. Another sliced into his thigh, A third nearly took his hand off. Blood flowed freely now, mixing with the melted frost on the chamber floor. Maul's vision blurred. His body screamed for rest. The dark side whispered seductively, "Use me. Embrace me. Let me give you the power to end this." Instead, Maul did something he'd never done in combat before. He stopped fighting entirely. He deactivated his lightsaber and fell to his knees. Arms spread wide, completely vulnerable. Qui-Gon's weapon clattered to the floor beside him. "Do it," Maul said quietly. "Kill me. Prove that redemption is impossible. Show the galaxy that once someone falls to darkness, they can never return. Make my death mean that no one else will ever try to break free of the Sith." Sidious froze, his blade raised for the killing blow. Confusion flickered across his ancient features. This wasn't the script he'd written. Maul was supposed to fall back to darkness in desperation, not surrender in acceptance. "What game is this?" the Emperor demanded. "No game, just the truth." Maul looked up at his former master. And despite the pain, despite the fear, his voice was steady. "You wanted to prove I'm still yours. That the chains you forged can never be broken. But here's what you didn't understand, Sidious. I've already broken them. Not through power or combat or defeating you in some grand duel. I broke them the moment I chose to face you without hatred. The moment I decided that dying as something better than what I was is worth more than living as your creature." For the first time in their entire relationship, Maul saw something unexpected in Sidious's eyes: uncertainty. The Emperor's greatest weapon had always been control, over fear, over ambition, over the fundamental belief that power was the only thing that mattered. But here was his most brutal creation, choosing powerlessness, choosing vulnerability, choosing certain death over returning to the Sith way. It was incomprehensible, and therefore terrifying. "You're insane," Sidious whispered. "I didn't just break your body on Lotho Minor. I broke your mind." "Maybe," Maul agreed. "Or maybe I finally woke up. Maybe I finally realized that everything you taught me, everything you made me believe, was a lie designed to keep me enslaved. Power doesn't free us, Sidious. It just builds prettier cages." The Emperor's blade trembled with rage. "Then I'll kill you and show the galaxy that mercy is weakness, that your pathetic redemption attempt ended exactly as it should, with your corpse as proof that the Sith way is the only way." "Do it," Maul said again. "But know that every being who hears this story will learn that I chose death over darkness, that I chose vulnerability over violence. And some of them, maybe not many, but some, will wonder if they could make the same choice. Your victory here today plants the seed of your eventual defeat." Sidious raised his lightsaber for the killing blow. The crimson blade hummed with anticipation. Maul closed his eyes, not in fear, but in acceptance. If this was how his journey ended, then at least he ended it as himself, not as Sidious's puppet. The blade descended and stopped centimeters from Maul's neck, not because Sidious had mercy, but because a familiar blue lightsaber blade intercepted it. And Obi-Wan Kenobi stood between master and former apprentice, his expression carved from stone. "That's far enough," Obi-Wan said quietly. Behind him, the chamber doors exploded inward. Anakin Skywalker burst through with his own blue blade ignited, followed by Mace Windu, a squad of clone troopers, and, most surprising of all, Garth Saxon and a dozen Mandalorian warriors in full armor. "The Council decided you shouldn't face this alone after all," Obi-Wan said, his eyes never leaving Sidious. And when the Mandalorians heard through Republic channels what was happening, they insisted on coming. Something about a warrior who yields in combat earning the right to have his brothers watch his back. Garth Saxon stepped forward, his weapons trained on Sidious. "You try to make us into monsters like yourself, Sith. But Maul showed us another way. We stand with him now." Sidious looked around at the assembled forces, calculating odds with the cold precision of a master strategist. Even he couldn't fight this many opponents simultaneously. His gaze returned to Maul, still kneeling, still unarmed, still choosing vulnerability despite reinforcements arriving. "This isn't over," Sidious said, his voice promising future vengeance. "The Sith will endure. The dark side will always find willing servants. And you, Maul, you may have found allies today, but darkness never truly leaves those it's touched. You'll fall again. They always do." Before anyone could stop him, Sidious thrust his hands downward. and the chamber floor erupted with dark side energy. The ancient facility's structure, already weakened by their battle, began to collapse. Chunks of stone and ice fell from the ceiling. The observation dome cracked, exposing them to Ren Var's lethal atmosphere. "Everyone out," Mace Windu commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This whole place is coming down." Anakin grabbed Maul, hauling him to his feet as the Mandalorians laid down covering fire at the collapsing sections. Obi-Wan deflected falling debris with the Force, creating a protective corridor for their escape. They ran through disintegrating hallways, the facility groaning and screaming as it tore itself apart. Sidious's mocking laughter echoed behind them, following them all the way to their ships. When they finally escaped into the frozen sky, Maul looked back to see the research station implode into rubble. There was no sign of the Emperor. He'd vanished like smoke, as he always did. But something had changed. Something fundamental. On the shuttle back to Coruscant, Obi-Wan sat beside Maul, who was being treated for his injuries by a medical droid. The Jedi Master held Qui-Gon's lightsaber, examining it thoughtfully. "You deactivated your weapon and surrendered," Obi-Wan said quietly. "In the middle of a death duel with the most dangerous Sith in the galaxy." "What?" Maul was silent for a long moment, staring at his bandaged hands. "Because fighting him with hatred would have meant he still controlled me. The only way to truly break free was to choose something he could never understand. Acceptance that some things are more important than survival. You Jedi call it faith. I'm still learning what that means." Obi-Wan smiled slightly, holding out the lightsaber. "Then perhaps you've earned the right to carry this permanently. Not as a weapon, but as a reminder of that choice." Maul took the lightsaber with reverence, his yellow eyes somehow seeming less malevolent now, more human, meeting Obi-Wan's. "I'm not Jedi Kenobi. I may never be. The dark side is still part of me." "No," Obi-Wan corrected gently. "You're not Jedi yet, but you're not Sith anymore either. You're something else, something new. And perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs, proof that the binary of light and dark isn't as absolute as we've always believed." Across the shuttle, Anakin watched the exchange with an expression that mixed hope and fear. He saw in Maul a reflection of his own struggles, the constant battle between light and dark, the terror that one mistake could send him spiraling into the abyss. But he also saw possibility. If someone as far gone as Maul could change, then maybe the darkness Anakin felt growing inside himself wasn't inevitable. Maybe there was always a choice. As they broke atmosphere and headed for hyperspace, Maul felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood: genuine peace. Not the absence of conflict, but the acceptance of it. He would struggle with darkness for the rest of his life. He would never fully escape what Sidious had made him, but he would keep choosing, moment by moment, breath by breath, to be something better. And in the end, perhaps that was enough. The Jedi Temple's council chamber had never felt more divided. 6 months had passed since Renvar, and the question of Maul's future could no longer be delayed. He had proven his commitment to redemption, training younglings in defensive techniques, mediating disputes between Republic factions, even developing new Force techniques that blended his Sith knowledge with Jedi philosophy. Yet the fundamental question remained: what do you do with a redeemed Sith Lord? Maul stood in the center of the chamber, no longer in binders, but still clearly aware he was on trial. His appearance had changed subtly over the months. The yellow in his eyes had faded to amber, and though his Zabrak tattoos remained, they seemed less like war paint and more like scars, reminders of what he'd survived rather than symbols of what he'd been. "The Council has deliberated extensively," Mace Windu began, his voice formal but not unkind. "Your actions since Lotho Minor have been exemplary. You've demonstrated genuine commitment to changing your path. You've saved lives, prevented conflicts, and shown wisdom in situations where violence would have been easier." However, he paused, choosing his words carefully. "The Jedi Order has codes, traditions, structures that have endured for millennia. You were not trained in these ways from childhood. You carry knowledge of the dark side that makes some members uncomfortable, and your past actions cannot simply be erased." "I understand," Maul said quietly. "I don't expect absolution. I don't even expect acceptance. I only ask for the chance to continue the work I've begun." Yoda tapped his Jimmer stick against the floor, drawing all attention. "Propose something, the Council does. Unique, this situation is. Unprecedented. A new path, perhaps needed. Maul, a Jedi Knight you cannot become. Too old. Too trained in darkness. Too marked by the past. But useful you are. Capable. Reformed, we believe. So create we will a new role. Redeemer. Confusion rippled through the assembled masters. And Maul's expression mirrored it. Redeemer? I don't understand. Obi-Wan stepped forward, a slight smile on his face. The Council proposes that you become something the Jedi Order has never had before, a specialist in reaching those who have fallen to darkness. You've walked that path. You know the Sith's methods, their manipulation, their psychological warfare. You understand how the dark side corrupts and how incredibly difficult it is to break free. He met Maul's eyes. Who better to help others escape that prison than someone who found his own way out? Shak Ti continued the explanation. You would work independently, though coordinated with the Council. When we encounter dark side users who might be redeemed, you would be sent. When Jedi struggle with darkness, you would counsel them. When we need insight into Sith tactics, you would provide it. You'd be neither fully Jedi nor fully independent, something in between. A bridge, Ki-Adi-Mundi added, between what was and what could be. Maul was speechless for a long moment. He had expected judgment, possibly exile, perhaps even a comfortable imprisonment. He had not expected to be given purpose. And if I fail, if I fall back to darkness, or if my methods prove too controversial, then we will deal with that when it happens, Mace Windu said. This is a risk, Maul, for you and for us. But the Force has shown us that taking this risk serves a greater purpose. The Clone Wars rage across the galaxy. Darkness is rising. We need every tool, every perspective, every chance to turn beings away from the Sith's path. There is one condition, Yoda said gravely. Always, a Jedi Knight will accompany you on missions. A partner, a guardian, a witness. Trust we do, but blind we are not. Earn full independence you must, over time. I accept that condition, Maul said immediately. I welcome it actually. The temptation of the dark side doesn't vanish. Having someone to anchor me. He looked at Obi-Wan. Having someone who believes. I can be better even when I doubt it. That's not a burden. That's a gift. Obi-Wan bowed slightly. Then I volunteer to be that partner. At least initially. I brought you into this. I should see it through. Anakin, attending the council session as an observer, spoke up. I'd like to volunteer as well. For future missions. I think. He hesitated, then continued with raw honesty. I think working with Maul might help me understand my own darkness better. If that's acceptable. Several council members exchanged meaningful glances. Anakin's struggles were known to them, though perhaps not their full depth. Having him learn from someone who had overcome the dark side might indeed be valuable, or dangerously validating if Maul ever fell. It was a calculated risk, but then everything about this situation was. Agreed, Yoda said. Now, your first mission, you have already. Come forward, she must. The chamber doors opened, and temple guards escorted in a young human woman in chains. Her eyes were yellow with dark side corruption, her presence in the Force roiling with barely contained rage. She was perhaps 20 standard years old, dressed in tattered clothing that suggested months of living rough. Found on Coruscant's lower levels, she was, Yoda explained. Killing she has been. 3 victims, all connected to a crime syndicate. Strong in the Force she is. Training in the dark side, she has received. From whom, she will not say. Mace Windu turned to Maul. This is your test, Redeemer. Reach her. Help her. Show us that the path you've walked can be navigated by others. Maul approached the young woman slowly, recognizing in her eyes the same trapped desperation he'd carried for decades. She snarled as he drew near, her chains rattling. Stay back, Sith. I can smell the darkness on you, even if you've painted yourself in Jedi colors. You're right, Maul said simply. I am Sith, or I was. The darkness you sense is real. It's still part of me. Still something I battle every day. But that's exactly why I understand what you're going through. That's why I can help. I don't want help. I want revenge. They killed my family, destroyed my home. The dark side gave me the power to make them pay. Why would I give that up? Maul knelt to bring himself to her eye level, his voice gentle but firm. Because revenge is a hole that can never be filled. You kill those who wronged you, but the pain doesn't stop. So you find new targets, new justifications, new reasons to hate. I know because I lived it for decades. Revenge against Obi-Wan for cutting me in half. Revenge against Sidious for abandoning me. Revenge against the entire galaxy for existing while I suffered. He showed her his scarred hands. And at the end of all that revenge, all that power, all that rage, I was alone, mad, and broken on a junk planet with nothing but my hatred to keep me company. The woman's anger faltered slightly. Then what's the alternative? Forgiveness? Letting them get away with what they did? No, Maul said. Justice. Not through murder, but through the law. Through the Jedi, the Republic, through systems that can hold people accountable without requiring you to destroy yourself in the process. The dark side promises power, but it's a lie. It makes you powerful and powerless at the same time. Powerful enough to kill, but too powerless to stop killing. They'll lock me up, the woman said, her voice breaking. I've already killed. There's no redemption for that. There's always redemption, Maul replied. It just doesn't look like freedom or happiness or erasing what you've done. Redemption looks like waking up every day and choosing to be better than you were yesterday. It looks like carrying your guilt without letting it crush you. It looks like using your pain to prevent others from making your mistakes. He stood, offering his hand. I won't lie to you. The path ahead is hard. Harder than continuing down the dark road. But it leads somewhere real, somewhere human, and you don't have to walk it alone. The young woman stared at his offered hand for a long moment. Her chains rattled as she trembled with the weight of the decision. The dark side screamed at her to reject his offer, to embrace her power, to make him suffer for his presumption. But beneath that screaming, she felt something else, something quieter but infinitely stronger. Hope. Slowly, hesitantly, she took his hand. The council watched in silence as Maul helped her to her feet. This was the test, not whether he could fight or resist temptation, but whether he could pass on what he'd learned, whether his redemption could become a template for others. As temple, guards escorted the young woman away to begin her own journey toward the light. Obi-Wan approached Maul with an expression of profound satisfaction. You did it, the Jedi Master said quietly. You gave her what I gave you, a choice and a hand to help her make it. Maul nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This was his purpose now, not to be the greatest warrior or the most powerful Force user, not to conquer or rule or dominate, but to be a bridge for those trapped in darkness, showing them that escape was possible because he was living proof. This is just the beginning, Maul said, looking around at the council. There will be others. Some will take my hand. Some will try to kill me. Some will fall back to darkness even after seeming saved. But every single one deserves the chance I received. Wise words, Yoda said, his expression warm. But remember also, deserve a chance, you do as well. Punish yourself forever, do not. Redemption is not endless suffering. It is choosing life over death, light over darkness, hope over despair. Live, Maul. Truly live. That is how you honor those you've wronged. As the council session concluded, and Maul was officially designated as the Order's first Redeemer, he felt something profound shift within him. The dark side was still there, it would always be there, a constant companion born of his traumatic past. But it no longer defined him. It was simply part of his story, not the entirety of it. He walked through the temple corridors with Obi-Wan, passing younglings who no longer fled from him in fear, but nodded respectfully. Passing Jedi who had seen his transformation and, while not all trusted him, acknowledged his efforts. Passing clone troopers who had fought beside him on Mandalore and knew his worth in battle. What are you thinking? Obi-Wan asked as they reached the temple's meditation balcony, overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape. Maul was quiet for a moment, watching speeders streak through the twilight sky. I'm thinking about Kagan, about the Jedi I killed to prove my strength to a master who never truly valued me, about all the lives I destroyed, in service to a philosophy that promised power but delivered only emptiness. He turned to Obi-Wan, and I'm thinking that, maybe, just maybe, spending the rest of my life helping others avoid my mistakes might not erase what I did, but it gives those deaths meaning. It transforms them from pointless tragedies into lessons that could save countless others. Kagan would appreciate that, Obi-Wan said softly. He always believed that even the darkest moments could become teaching opportunities. if we had the wisdom to learn from them. You're living that philosophy now. Maul ignited Qui-Gon's lightsaber, his lightsaber. Now, and watched the green blade hum in the growing darkness. It no longer felt like carrying a symbol of his greatest shame. It felt like carrying a torch passed from one generation to the next, from a Jedi who died believing in redemption to a Sith who lived to prove him right. May the Force be with you, Qui-Gon Jinn, Maul whispered to the wind. And with everyone I failed. I cannot bring you back. I cannot undo what I did. But I can make sure that others don't follow my path. That has to be enough. It has to be. The Force answered, with a warmth that had nothing to do with the dark side's burning, rage and everything to do with the light side's gentle acceptance. For the first time in his entire existence, Maul felt something he had never known as a child, never experienced as a Sith, never believed possible even in his earliest days of redemption. He felt at peace, not the peace of ending, but the peace of beginning. The peace of knowing that tomorrow would bring new struggles, new temptations, new opportunities to fall, and new opportunities to choose the light. Every day was a battle. Every moment was a choice. And as long as he kept choosing, kept reaching for something better than what he'd been, then his redemption was real. The Clone Wars would continue to rage. Sidious's grand plan would continue to unfold. Darkness would continue to rise across the galaxy. But now there was something else rising to meet it, a former Sith Lord who had learned that true strength came not from dominating others, but from mastering yourself, not from inspiring fear, but from offering hope. Darth Maul was dead. The Redeemer stood in his place, and the galaxy would never be quite the same. In the years that followed, Maul's legend grew in unexpected ways. He became known not as the fearsome Sith apprentice who had terrorized the galaxy, but as living proof that no one was beyond redemption. His work saved dozens from the dark side's grasp, former Inquisitors questioning their loyalty to the Empire, young Force sensitives tempted by Sith holocrons, even Jedi who had fallen and saw no path back to the light. The young woman from his first mission became his most successful student, eventually joining him as a Redeemer herself. Together they formed a small but vital network within the Jedi Order, specializing in the impossible cases that traditional Jedi struggled to reach. When Order 66 finally came and the Jedi Order fell, Maul survived alongside Obi-Wan and a handful of others, his intimate knowledge of Sidious's methods proving invaluable in navigating the Empire's purge. Some say he joined the rebellion. Others claim he vanished into the unknown regions, seeking other Force traditions that understood the balance between light and dark. A few whisper that he's still out there, an ageless warrior walking the thin line between darkness and light, helping lost souls find their way home. But the truth of what happened to Maul after the fall of the Republic remains a mystery. What isn't mysterious is the impact of his choice on that junk planet when Obi-Wan offered his hand. That single moment of vulnerability, of choosing to trust instead of hate, rippled across decades and touched countless lives. The galaxy learned that redemption wasn't about erasing the past or pretending atrocities never happened. It was about acknowledging what you'd done, carrying that weight without letting it crush you, and spending every day after trying to be something better. It was about turning your greatest shame into your most powerful teacher. And somewhere, in the flow of the eternal Force, Qui-Gon Jinn smiled. His death had not been in vain. His belief in redemption had not been naive. The Jedi he died trying to protect had grown into the master who saved a Sith soul. And that Sith had become a bridge between darkness and light, proving that the Force truly did bind all things, even the fallen and the redeemed. May the cycle continue. May those who fall find hands reaching to lift them. May those trapped in darkness see the light that Maul fought so hard to reach. And may the Force be with them all, now and always.